Hello, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here. This time we will be trying something interactive, something useful, something special. We will talk about something quite deep and important, specifically on how your organizational culture plays a key role on performance and can be your secret weapon for a market defining competitive advantage. So, we will also talk about how culture can be shaped. And let me say that again, you can shape the culture of your organization into what you envision. And if you heard about this before and you thought this was something only large organizations with large budgets could afford, well, give me these 30 minutes with you and you'll walk away with something you can put to use right away in your small business. All right. So, for those who don't know me, well, my name is Huber Ostanix. I am a Texas born from Hungarian parents who really wanted me to pick up this funny accent. So they took off to South America, and that's where I grew up. And I forgot how many years I have been married to the same woman, and I'm a father of two. And I live in the Pacific Northwest outside of Seattle. My career has been a back and forth between corporate and entrepreneurship. Early out of college, I founded an engineering services company, which we sold, and then went into corporate, where I worked for some of the biggest brands in the industry that I chose. I learned about best practices, and I also saw the good, the bad, and the ugly. I have been in this consulting coaching journey for the last few years, and after advising large corporations on very specific things, that I have a specific expertise in, I have been taking my practice to the small and medium business. My specialties are primarily business operations and strategy, and I have a particular bent towards go to market, channel sales, and services and customer success. And after all these years at work, I have figured that in my practice, I want to seek simplicity, work on interesting problems that actually matter with people that I love, who are fun, interesting, and who care, and ultimately adding as much value as possible in the process. Okay, so that's enough about myself. Let's get started, all right? As a system and soul coach, I work with organizations in the implementation of what we call a business operating system or a framework. That's basically a fancy way for saying this is how we do things over here. There are many frameworks out there. By the latest count, there are about 42 that are worth their salt. But all of them, and I mean all of them, have a structure similar to this. First, there is an underlying layer or foundational layer that defines why the company exists. Everything else is built on top of this. And it contains the purpose of the business, which can take different grades of intensity, going from something as simple as a mission statement, which states what the company does, a BHAG or big, hairy, audacious goal that Jim Collins described in his book Good to Great, and that defines an ambitious goal in the next 5 to 10 years, or all the way to a massive transformative purpose or an MTP, which is more popular in the startup community and in the context of exponential organizations, and which aims to state how will the organization make that proverbial dent in the universe, right? And it also contains this layer also contains the values and the culture of the organization. Who are we? What do we stand for? And what do we care about? And what are the rituals that we celebrate? So, when businesses are young, they generally just inherit the founder's values and purpose and build a culture around that. Now, on top of this layer, then we have a day to day operations layer. And this is where most of the business happens and where most employees and leaders spend their time. It is also the layer that is more exposed to the customer and through which they experience the value that the organization creates. In this layer is where we see the organizational structure, who reports to who, what each person does, and the processes that drive the business. Then you have the KPIs or metrics that serve as indicators of whether if we are moving in the right direction, if we are performing well. The goals and how these tie together with the KPIs and compensation plans for people And finally, how communication and collaboration happens, where and with what frequency, and the tools we utilize inside the business. Most smaller business leaders stay in this layer because they haven't reached enough operational maturity to have this function with enough stability. But on the very top, there is yet another layer. And this is the layer of the high-level processes and business management. This is where senior leaders should be spending their time, tracing strategies, deciding on where to go next, developing the company and their people, and figuring out and deciding on how to deal with risk and change. When businesses have a mature framework, their senior leader can step back and work more on the business instead of in the business. And that happens on this layer. So the particular framework I utilize goes by the name System and Soul. And it receives this name, it's a funny name, but because of the premise that every business needs a system to run on, but it also has a soul. And the soul is what makes the system matter. So System and Soul, or we also call it S2 for short, has all the parts I already talked about, but it kind of splits things a little bit differently. There is the design of the business with the organizational structure and the processes that drive the business, the people with their extraordinary talent and abilities, the ethos, which aligns more with the soul and captures who we are, what do we stand for, and what are the rituals that we celebrate. Destination, and that's where are we going? Why are we going there? And when are we supposed to get there? And the score or KPIs that tell us whether if we are getting closer to that destination. And finally, we have the cadence or the rhythm of that business. And this is that drumbeat that relentlessly drives us forward. One way to look at it is that what differentiates System and Soul from other frameworks is that there are many organizations that use their people to grow their business. But then there are some organizations that use their business to grow their people, and we prefer to work for the latter. So what it seems to be true is that the most successful and effective frameworks have a foundational layer, and they mention values and the company culture. Most recognize this because the strength of values and organizational culture is such that they can overcome almost any flaw in strategy. Values and culture together with a clear purpose intent are strong attractors for the right type of people, including clients and employees. Culture and values also drive decisions in the absence of the boss. The most effective organizations aim to establish command by intent, which is shown in this diagram. And it can only be achieved with a strong culture, shared values, and clear purpose. The military uses this concept as well, with high effectiveness in high-stakes situations. And I will be happy to share the source of this document so that you can review it better. So all right. So we have a 4-stage exercise in front of us, and here is what's going to happen. First, we are going to show you a simple technique to develop or validate your organization's values. After that exercise, we will steelman your values, and then we'll attempt to make them memorable. So those are the first 3 steps. And then the 4th step, we are going to transition into the second part of the exercise where we will utilize the culture equation, and we'll look into the habits that will help create the culture you wish you had. All right? So if you think it could be more fun, then let's work in pairs or groups of 3. All right? Good. So please take the sheet in front of you and look for the section that says clones. And now I want you to think about 2 or 3 people that you really enjoyed having work for you. So much that if you could, you would clone them and write down their names in the plus column. And after that, think also about 2 or 3 of the weakest links that you have ever had as part of your team, and write their names in the minus column. All right? And let's take 5 minutes for that. All right? Now that we have that, I want you to list the most important attributes of each of the groups. what you loved about the plus, and what the minus lacked. Now combine, clean, anything that you need to do. Let's take another 5 minutes for that. All right, we're back. So now that we have done this and that you are satisfied that these attributes, let's quickly read them and see if they read like a suitable set of values for your organization. If they do, then let's see if any of them also falls under the Lencioni test. This is after Patrick Lencioni, and we want to have rules that are being lived out currently, that are differentiating, and that are, that sound current. So if any of the values you have now written down you cannot really say that you exhibit currently, those are considered aspirational values. If the bar, in contrast, if the bar is quite low, those would be the permission to play values. And if they don't really apply to where you are today and you have moved on further, those would be accidental values. We don't want any of those, okay? None of these three. If you end up with a set of two or less, you may want to run this exercise. Now that you have your set of values, let's make them memorable. And I want you to first find a verb that expresses a concept close to the value. Now try to express an action, either literal or maybe metaphorical, that uses that verb and it exemplifies that value. So look at this screen, and there are a few examples here of what we are looking for. So notice that curiosity becomes ask the question. Servant leadership becomes everyone takes out the trash. So these verbs, these actions clearly depict what the value is about. So let's give ourselves another 5 minutes to do this. Now, think about this. Values are usually set, okay? They come sometimes from a founder's own values. Culture is a little bit different. Culture is usually aspirational. We would like to work at an organization that fill in the blank, right? And we can build the culture that we want. We can make our culture into our ideal, actually. Culture is basically the product of living out the organizational values through our habitual actions. So values plus habits equals culture. And so the question is, what are the right habits to build the culture that we want, given the values that we hold dear? Any questions? So this is the final step in our exercise. Again, take the sheet intended for this and let's write down the attributes we would like to be true about our organizational culture. Let's iterate around them and discuss them in your working group. These are the attributes of who we are. Now, under each attribute, let's write a set of actions that would allow us to, together as an organization, live out and demonstrate what we have, that we have this value. When does this behavior happen? How often? Can everybody in the company have a version of this action? And for someone external, more important than anything else, does this action translate into the value that we are exhibiting? Can they tell that that's your value? So I hope that you like the exercise and you have obtained some benefit out of it. Can you apply it as soon as you get back to work? Would you like to further expand this exercise? And I want to leave you with one more thought. Knowing where you are in your journey is as important as knowing where you're going. The S2 diagnostic allows you to understand what are the key aspects where you should concentrate next, and that would provide you with the highest return, the highest ROI. Please take a moment to take the assessment and share your results with the group. All right? Thank you very much.